As a creator, when you take on projects that are significantly sized in their scope or significantly long in their duration, a challenge that you'll face is, in addition to the building, you also need to handle your own project management. That means being able to ask questions along the way, like what's next, or what's stopping me from making significant progress, or is there something that if I knew would make a big impact on my continued development of this. That type of skill really shows up in developing a homebrew pinball game. This past week, my focus has really been on establishing integration of all of the major systems. So, in my mind, those major systems are a cabinet, a playfield, the mechs, the wiring, the electronics, the power, and the computer and its software. Wow. So that's like, what is that? Seven key pieces. If you can get to the point in a complex project like a pinball machine where you've got all of your major components working together in one cohesive system, even if everything isn't perfect, that's an incredibly substantial milestone. I've got this Surface laptop. I am running VS Code in remote SSH mode, so it's actually connecting to the software that is on the pinball's operating computer. As I do things like press the buttons or hit certain switches, we actually can see the real-time output of that up on the machine. That has been incredibly useful in understanding what's happening and debugging and getting things to where they are now. When I first got the power on and started, the flippers actually moved when I pressed the button. One of the things I discovered is that it did not feel correct. There was a weird lag, and I ended up tweaking a lot of values. I got it closer, but it wasn't quite there. What I was really looking for is that my homebrew would feel flipper-wise like a commercial machine. I ended up reaching out to Aaron at Fast Pinball, and they apparently have been doing quite a lot of work. Fast powers a number of commercial systems, including some of Pinball Brothers' offerings as well as Barrels of Fun. So the upside of that is they had been working on a special driver mode just for flippers to get them to feel snappy and professional. He ended up sharing the settings with me, and with that in place, they play exactly like I would want. I'll point out here in some clips where I am micro flipping and tap passing and post passing, and that's exactly what I wanted out of this. At the moment, there aren't a whole lot of shots on the table. There, of course, is the right orbit through the spinner, and that slings around, and it is hittable with the upper flipper. A question that I had when I first started building this table is if the upper flipper shots I was imagining were going to be there were actually hittable, and the answer is yes. It's tricky. You have to be quick, but if you are fast enough, they are hittable. So that was excellent. My design in VPX turns out to be possible in real life, which is good to know. The other shot that's on the table is the drop targets, the 5 drop targets that are kind of in the midfield. The challenge I think I'm going to have is tuning the flipper power so that they don't airball on the drop targets, but yet have enough power to fling the ball up ramps at the end of the playfield is going to be a challenge. This may be something that I just continue to tweak on. Currently, I have 11 629 coils in the machine. I may end up changing that out for 11 630s. We will see. So that pretty much recaps what is going well. What isn't going well is I've got a handful of issues I'm going to need to address. First up, you may have noticed the geometry of the slings is quite wonky. They hit the ball in weird areas. They don't really aim at the outlines, so I'm going to need to go back to the drawing board there. I'll probably end up remeasuring some commercial systems and trying to get my geometry a little bit closer. The second thing is I've been having trouble with the bottom left flipper. Somehow the crank arm is not properly holding the flipper bat. And you can see just in this recording of me messing around with it for 5 minutes or so, the flipper bat has already started to move so that it is not aligned with the right flipper bat. At the start of this recording, they were aligned, whereas now there's some slipping happening. Related, yet another cabinet problem, the manual plunger does not align with the ball in the plunge lane. It's too high and too much off to the right. It also seems that my trough isn't quite in the right location. You can see that relative to the apron, it sticks out too far. This is obviously not how commercial machines look, so I'm going to need to tweak this. Comparing this to a commercial machine, you can see that it pretty much aligns flush with the apron, although not every machine is exact. All right, so what's next? First of all, on the cabinet front, I actually got a decent amount of the cabinet wiring done. I did get the tilt bob in, I got the start button in. These aren't operational yet, so that's something I'm going to look at. Another thing is you may notice that I am missing the ground braiding that typically is in a pinball cabinet. I honestly don't know what I'm going to do there. I need to research how that works and what I should be doing to make sure that the machine is safe and show ready. On the playfield side, I want to get the rest of the coils wired up. So that would be things like the drops, the coil that restores them, the pop bumpers, and maybe even the scoop. I also want to start developing more of the upper third of the playfield. Now that I know what shots are possible, I'm going to start putting in some ball forms and maybe even developing some more of the 3D uh, sculpts that will appear and simulate the trees. And speaking of simulating trees, I have also been doing some concept work with AI to try to really dial in how I want the look and the feel of the machine to be. And I will leave you with a little image here of a direction that I'm kind of leaning in. One of the things that I had to think about is what makes a machine exciting when you first walk up to it? Does there have to be a central character? And how exactly do you relay that to the player? Early on, my concept work, I think I was a little bit too much in the Robin Hood territory. It was daytime, it was green. And what I ended up discovering is that purple as a color definitely has a magical feel to it, which I want. Nighttime or twilight gives it a mysterious feel. Also, just having trees, I think, was a little too sterile. Whereas in this final concept, you can see that there is a character and there's almost a bit of a story. You're wondering, is the character discovering the tree? Are they coming to the tree for a reason? Why is there this white spirit wolf? All of those things, I think, are really leaning in the direction of how I envision this game going. Thanks for sticking with me this far.